today with finances and money. GB News' economic and business editor Liam Halligan is with us at the desk. Let's start with this inflation figure, Liam. Then the Christmas party season, it's almost upon us. Are we going to have more money then to go out on the rouse?
No, because prices aren't coming down. They're just not going up as quickly.
Okay, just explain that a little bit more.
That's what inflation is. Inflation means the extent to which prices go up. And if inflation falls, it means prices go up less quickly. So, for instance, food price inflation in September was 12.1%. That means in September, a basket of food that the ONS measures cost you 12.1% more than in September 2022. It's now down to 10.1%, so food in October was just 10% more expensive than in October 2022. So there's no deflation, which is when prices fall. There's just lower inflation. Economists generally think that a bit of inflation is good. It kind of lubricates the economy, sort of 1, 2, maybe 3%. But once inflation starts getting beyond 4 and 5%, then what happens is what we call inflationary expectations kick in. So if you know that inflation is going to be 5%, you're going to really push for a wage increase. If you know that inflation is going to be 5% and you're a company, you're going to put your prices up 5% so you don't lose out. So higher prices become a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's what's happened over the last year to 18 months with inflation in this country going to a 40-year high.
And we were chatting earlier, you had this stark figure compared to 2019 in terms of food prices.
No, it's not 2019. I mentioned it in my little video wall there. It's the ONS. Unusually, it did in its fine print in the press releases this morning, which I was reading at sort of 7:01. It said that while food price inflation is still 10.1%, which is very, very high, that's compared to October 2022. Over the last 2 years, compared to October 2021, food prices have actually gone up 30%.
That was it, 30% since 2021.
30%, up by getting on for a third. Now, anyone who goes to supermarkets regularly, as I do, has seen that happening. But it's pretty stark when you have those kind of suspicions corroborated in black and white in an official document from the National Statistical Office saying, 30% increase in food prices in 2 years.
Massive.
Pretty serious.
Is this one of the reasons why, I mean, we were listening to those people out on the street earlier saying they don't really feel like inflation is coming down. I suppose food prices are one of those things you interact with more than just about any other price. There's a bit of a lag between food prices and, for example, energy prices. When might we see food price inflation fall back in line with the rest of inflation?
Food prices always lag other prices. Why? Because food takes, say, a year to create, right? And farmers will tell you there are 3 Fs in farming. Well, there are lots of Fs in farming, but 3 Fs that I'm going to talk about now. That's when you plant crops, you need fuel, you need fertilizer, and you need finance. And this time last year, all those things were really expensive. It was expensive to go to the bank and get money. If a farmer wants to get money to fund a big planting operation, fuel was obviously very, very expensive, and fertilizer was expensive too in the aftermath of Russia's war with Ukraine. Of course, Russia, one of the major fertilizer producers of the world. And so those higher input prices are embodied in the food that we're eating now. So that's why food prices...
It takes about a year for food to lag behind everything else.
It takes a growing season. There's also some suspicion, which the big supermarkets deny, that they're keeping prices artificially high. They vehemently deny that. I'm not sure what I think about that, actually. Fair comment, Ofcom. I'm not sure what I think about that.
Rishi Sunak hitting his target with this inflation figure today. I think it's lower than even you predicted. Did you think it would start with a 5?
No, I said it would start with a 5 or maybe even a 4.
OK,
I didn't think it would go down to 4.6.
Is he right to say, we're on target? Because economists, weren't they predicting this anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear that inflation was going to come down by half when he made his prediction when he gave his pledge back in January when inflation was 10.1%. And look, managing inflation is nothing to do with the government, really. It's the Bank of England's job. It's the Bank of England that raised interest rates. OK, the government says it hasn't implemented tax cuts, which they think would be inflationary. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some tax cuts in the autumn statement next week, next Wednesday. I don't think they'll be on personal taxation. I don't think they'll be on income tax or national insurance or even stamp duty on housing. I think those things will happen in the spring before a likely general election. I think there could easily be tax cuts for businesses next week. Something called full expensing, Pip. That will be extended, in my view. That means that if you invest as a business, you can offset that investment against your corporation tax bill.
Some suggestions that'll be made permanent.
Well, let's see. I think it would be kind of rocket boosters to make it permanent. But just a point here, we know a lot of small business owners watch GB News and listen to GB News, and rightly so. These small businesses are the backbone of Britain. 2/3 of our companies employ 2/3 of our people, half of all our GDP. If you're a small business and you haven't got a load of cash in your bank account, and lots of small businesses haven't, particularly after lockdown, caterers, restaurants, pubs, all the rest of it. If you haven't got a big chunk of money and it's expensive to borrow at the moment, how can you invest to take advantage of these investment tax breaks? You just want the lower rate of corporation tax. You don't want full expensing offsetting a lower rate of corporation tax.
Yeah.
It seems to me this would be a business tax cut for big business when what we need is help for small business.